Hi there, and welcome to the Ethanol Producer Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Anna Simet. We're here at the International Fuel Ethanol Workshop and Expo in St. Louis. I am here with Adam Cooper. He is Senior Applications Engineer from dataPARC. Adam, hello, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I am so happy to have you. Thanks so much for being at the show. Adam, I think let's start by talking about the data ecosystem for ethanol producers. What are some of the challenges that ethanol producers face when it comes to data accessibility and usability? And then what are your top 5 tips for getting that process data into the hands of more people at the plant?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that we've seen across the ethanol industry. One is that data sources tend to be siloed. So you might have your production data in one location, your lab data in another, your maintenance data is in a third system perhaps, and then none of those systems are talking to each other. And so if somebody wants to get data to kind of corroborate things between those two different data sets, they have to then go to 2 systems. They might not even have access to all the systems themselves, so they might need to ask someone else. So that data kind of siloedness or fragmentation is kind of the main thing that we see. And then also kind of the integrity of some data. We'll see, like, if lab data is entered into an Excel file, for example, there'll be 5 versions of that Excel file for the month that, one person had to make a copy because it was already being used. And then you wonder what data, what is the real single source of truth there? Yeah. So that can be a problem for a lot of people.
For sure.
So then in terms of like 5 tips, I kind of start from like the bottom and kind of work your way up.
Let's do it.
One, are you actually measuring your data? Do you have sensors for it? If you don't have sensors for it, do you have manual entry or some other system to be able to record that data? Do you even have the ability to see it? That would be kind of step 1.
Okay.
Next step is, do you have a place to store that data that is readily available? So do you have a historian? Do you have some other database for manual entry? Do you have something that can, basically put all of that together in one spot and save it for long periods of time, not just simply short term or in like a file? Okay. Then next kind of again becomes, do you have the ability to see that data now that you're storing it? Do you have a visualization platform to be able to see it in one form or another? Is that accessible across your facility to your multiple groups? If it's only available to operations but not to the lab manager or people like that, or your manager, or like your plant manager, then can it really be effective for your organization? Then kind of fourth, building on that, is do you have already built the displays and the information that people need? If it's plant manager doesn't have the time to like build their own graphics usually.
Right.
So who has built that for them? Is it in a form that they can see it? And can they kind of like scan that graphic and know where they might want to dive in? And then lastly, once you have these kind of reports, displays, and things built, do you have a mechanism to proactively send that out to people? A lot of times for like a morning meeting, I know at least in the past, it's somebody's job to like gather all the data and then present it at the morning meeting. With a program like ours, you have the ability to set up a workflow so you can send that report out to all the people. A, you can auto-generate it, but B, you can send it out to everyone at 6:45. And so when 7 rolls around, no one is surprised by the report that they're seeing. Everybody has seen the report, they see the same data, the same report, so you're all speaking the same language.
Right.
Nobody goes, well, I didn't see that, and then somebody else goes, well, that's a big deal to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you. That was a great rundown. So once that data is unlocked, what are some of the first steps a plant can take to start using it to make better decisions, whether it's dashboards, alarms, predictive maintenance?
So I touched on a little bit of that in the previous question. So certainly building displays, building automation to send out displays and reports, if that makes sense.
Yep.
But kind of as you mentioned, some of the other things, alarming is a really good place to start. Whether it is downtime, so whether or not your piece of equipment is up and running, getting a downtime alarm set, and then being able to actually record information against those alarm events. So why did this downtime happen? Is like a reason, and then usually, like at least in our software, there's a comments field where you can put in more information. Typically we recommend like, what was the solution? Because 3 months from now, you may remember hey, we fixed the pump, but like, what was the pump fix? How did we figure out that it was the pump that was the issue? And let alone 2, 3, 5 years from now, when you have a vague feeling at that point about what happened.
And you probably have different people working there. You might have different people working there who
don't even remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to have that history of your events to be able to look back into, and then starting that whenever you get the software, starting that today, for example, 3 years from now you're going to be happy that you have that backlog. There's a saying that like the best time to plant a tree is 100 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today.
Love that.
Yeah. And then alarms and limits can go against more things than just downtime. Like quality events is a really good example, where it may not have caused downtime, but you may have had issue with the quality, and having a record of those events and what caused those. And also just like extraordinary events. If you had something go wrong where there was a contamination and you needed to add chemicals to clean that up.
Yeah.
That might not have caused you downtime per se, but that is an extraordinary event that you would probably want to record. What did we do? How much did we add to get rid of the contamination? Yeah. And then be able to look back at that, some amount of time in the future.
Right. Okay. Well explained. So let's jump into AI, a big topic of conversation at this FEW. First, in your opinion, should every plant be looking for an AI solution? Are there some operations that might not yet be ready for AI, and how do they know if they're ready or not?
Yeah, this is a really good question. There's a whole track at this conference about it. I spoke at one of the events. I do think that producers should be looking at it.
Okay.
They might not all be ready, and I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But given how prevalent it is, and this is one of the things that we talked about, even in like your day-to-day, if you're searching on a platform, Google, Microsoft, whatever, they're being powered by Gemini, Copilot. The AI results are at the top. You're using the tool even if you don't maybe realize it. And then there's things that you can do with kind of today's generative AI, whether it's Copilot, Claude, ChatGPT, to like write emails or write code or calculations that you can do today. So I do think that producers should be looking at it, even if they're not ready. That being said, there's a sort of a range out there of producers and where they are in their sort of technology journey when it comes to data and things like that. In order for you to be ready, this kind of goes back a little bit to what we talked about, but you want to be collecting your data. You want to have a central repository for that data, so that an AI model or something has something to read and look at. One of the things I didn't talk about but is very important is context. So some sort of like asset hierarchy or structure where the model needs to know what's the flow rate into this tank. And if it just looks at your tag set, if sometimes descriptions are not that great or loop numbers don't really give you much other than it's a flow. So having the context to say, this is the flow in for this vessel, this is the temperature for this vessel, having that entire context there, that not only helps the model know all of these things, but it's also really good for your human people as well, your operators, especially new people. If they don't know where to look for these things, and then you have 3 tags that have pretty similar descriptions, one's dead, one's a different meter, like a different reading from a different meter, that really helps with those guys as well. So having that context in place. And then one of the other things we talked about being ready is knowing what you want to do with it. Even in the presentations that I saw, there's different flavors of AI and what they can do. Whether it's an advanced process control model to be able to sort of help tweak your system, whether it's a digital twin model where it's you can do like what if analysis, where you can say like if we tweaked this, what would happen in the model. Or just AI tools to empower the software that you already have to help you build displays or run correlation on the data that you have. I think having a problem in mind, at least an initial problem, is a good idea. I think of it as being akin to like, if you go to the car dealership, you should know if you want a pickup or like a 4-door sedan.
Great way to put it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Otherwise, the car salesman's just going to take whatever he can get.
Yeah. Okay. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they are ready. Before adding an industrial AI solution to their tech stack, what are the top 5 things that these leaders need to consider to ensure they're choosing the right solution for their needs?
Yeah, no, there's definitely quite a few things that they can consider. So to kind of bring it back to the previous one just a little bit, that idea of like, what do I want to do?
Yep.
That is something that you want to think about, and I didn't mention this before, but you want to think about kind of across the platform. A lab manager is going to have a different request probably than perhaps the operation manager or your plant manager. Making sure that there's kind of thought throughout the different levels in the organization is key. Making sure that you're prepared to, once you have it, that you're prepared to like have the resources to actually like make sure it works, make sure that there's feedback in order to refine it. These things are never, it's very rarely does it sort of get it perfect on the first go. So making sure that you have the ability to go in, refine, and make sure ongoing that it works for you. And then, again, kind of making sure operationally and time-wise that you're ready for it. We all have a lot of initiatives going on, and so while this is, really out there and pretty cool, making sure that you actually, not that you're just sort of like, oh great, I'm hearing about this, I should do it, but like, I'm able to invest the time, and that this is something that I need. And then I think lastly is just preparing the people that will eventually be interacting with the tool. I feel like a lot of times if you talk to like operators, they'll tell you that this software or that software was kind of pushed on me, and I didn't know it was coming, and now it's part of my day-to-day. So I think kind of letting them know what's coming, what could possibly be there, and maybe getting their buy-in. Again, talking to someone about how they might use it, what would be interesting about it, just making sure that it's something that's in the mind.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect segue to my last question. Adam, what roles would you recommend lead the AI integration effort at an ethanol facility? Should it be the operator, engineer, and should there be multiple subject matter experts for each stage in implementation?
Yes, so that is a great question to think about as well. I think leading the effort is going to depend on exactly what you mean by sort of leading. I think, as I mentioned, you're going to want buy-in across all the levels. Obviously, you want buy-in at the top to make sure that there's capital and things to invest into it. But again, you want to make sure that that all the different sort of facets of your company are ready to help and be willing. I think a lot of times the actual kind of day-to-day lead comes usually from operations or engineering, but might come from a lab manager as well. Someone who deals a lot with the data, validation, clarity, and probably whoever has the use case or the strongest use case in mind should be the one to lead at least the initial effort. When it comes to SMEs, I do think you're going to want SMEs involved from different facets. So probably that means multiple. Not all of them are going to be needed all at the same time. You're probably going to need someone on the IT/OT side to begin with to make sure all the data connections are set up and that whatever AI or model can read the data it needs. Then you're probably going to want someone, more in the middle of operations or lab to be able to validate the data and make sure that what you're getting out of the model isn't simply a black box that you don't really know. Because it's a lot of times you have to remember that ultimately these things, what they generate and what you do off of them, you have to own to a certain extent. So if it tells you that you should tweak this thing, you should feel comfortable tweaking that.
Yeah.
And making sure you understand why it's asking that and what could possibly happen. And then I think you also need to make sure that there's some sort of value that you think is going to come out of it. And so that might come from top-level management or from the operations or engineering manager, so that you can prove that this system, the tweaks or what it's telling you to do or the value that it's adding makes sense for what you're actually putting into it, time, energy, and whatever the investment of the software or the tool might be.
Well, Adam, this has been great. You've given some solid advice. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think, I would just kind of stress, again, make sure you have something in mind. You have a problem you're trying to solve. And then one of the other things around that is to start, make sure that doesn't have to be necessarily a very small problem, but make sure that it is something that is contained, that you're not trying to completely replicate your whole plant and optimize everything all in one go. That you have a unit or an area that you'd like to start with. You can certainly expand after that, but I think making it something that is realistic and within a confined scope is a good way to start.
Beautiful. Well, how do our viewers learn more?
Yeah, so you're welcome to look up dataPARC, dataparc.com. We have a lovely software package, and we'll be here probably next year, so come find us if you want to say hi and probably speak again.
Awesome. Well, I sure do appreciate you coming on and chatting with me on the podcast and for being at the show, Adam.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. Adam Cooper of dataPARC. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time.